Welcome to Being Boss, a podcast for creatives, business owners, and entrepreneurs who want to take control of their work and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Emily Thompson, and today I'm joined by Corey from the Being Boss team to chat about what's up with my retail company, Almanac Supply Co. Spoiler, we moved our physical storefront in the touristy destination of North Shore, Chattanooga, and I'm sharing why and how we moved, more about the store, and what I've learned along the way. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference on the show notes at www.beingboss.club. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to this show and share us with a friend. All right, bosses, it's time for another podcast recommendation. And this one is a deep dive into all the unsexy industries that are often overlooked. The podcast is Unsexy, hosted by Elaine Zelby, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. In each episode of Unsexy, Elaine explores industries such as campsite booking and outdoor travel, agriculture, chemical industry, and more. And sure, she claims they're unsexy, but many of the episodes are exactly the kinds of businesses that I would love to know more about, and I feel like many of you will too. Learn more and listen to Unsexy wherever you get your podcasts. Back again so soon, Corey?
I knew you couldn't keep me away.
What?
You missed me, didn't you? I'm trying to think of something snarky. It's not working.
Yeah, good job. Good job. Right. I have definitely found post sort of, or like going back out in pandemic that like, and everyone I talk to, because I've had plenty of people like respond back to me, is no one knows how to converse anymore, or just like, or God forbid, banter. Like, well, how does that even work? I'm going to stumble and say dumb things.
I've never been good at that. So,
so especially bad now. I feel like I used to be pretty good at banter. This past weekend, I went rock shopping for Almanac, and something weird was in the air of just like, I got hit on several times. Like plenty of people were just trying to banter and otherwise just engage. And I didn't know what to do. I did not know how to respond. I kept just saying dumb things or otherwise just like, sure, or indeed, or that's funny or whatever. And I kept walking away going like, God, do I not know how to converse anymore? And maybe not.
Well, that's also why I still avoid social gatherings at all costs, because I do not want the banter and the small talk. It gives me anxiety.
I don't want small talk, but I do love a good banter. I'm not going to lie, but I've definitely, I've always had a bit of, delayed banter. Like I'm going to come up with a really funny retort about 24 hours later. Let me tell you, it's going to be a real zinger. But like usually pretty okay in the moment, but I feel like I've lost it. I've lost my mojo.
Like you and I went to a conference last fall, like lots of people there. First big gathering we really had post pandemic or since the pandemic. And I was just,
it was August 2021.
And I was just like, all these people around me, I'm just like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Yeah. Just don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Well, I mean, and I still introvert for sure, but like, I don't know. I used to could engage so humorously, and now I know 4 words. That's all I got, y'all.
What are the 4 words?
Indeed, sure, and that's funny.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right. So we're here today, back at it again, to kind of continue a conversation we had several months ago. I forget which episode it was. It'll be in the show notes. We were talking about you and Almanac opening a new retail space. And somehow we're back here again talking about you and Almanac opening a new retail space again. What did you do?
That's the official question. What did you do? Well, I opened another retail store.
and to clarify, this is not a second location. This is
Indeed.
Just a new location. You've just moved.
We moved. So yeah, whatever that episode was, it'll be in the show notes. Feel free to go back and listen to it. It's like July-ish of last year, because last July I opened Almanac's first retail store. It was a tiny little store, and I'm talking tiny little store in the North Shore neighborhood of Chattanooga, just off sort of the main strip, the main like tourist strip. in Chattanooga, or like one of two of them, I guess. And I was super excited about. We, opened the store. It was sort of what we were moving towards the entire time we've had Almanac. It was, it was in that moment in July last year too, where like the pandemic was over, I say in air quotes, right? Like cases loads went really down. We thought it was over before Delta hit. And so we opened it. It was a ton of fun. Opened it 9 days, and then, Delta hit, and it was the holidays. And so we've been in that space we were in that space for 9 months, I think. And then fate was like, but that's not your last stop, Emily. And I said, fine, let's see what's next. So we just moved the store to a bigger location less than a year after opening it originally.
And isn't this location like literally right around the corner from the last one?
I mean, it's not even right around the corner. Like
it's like within eyesight.
It is totally legitimately within eyesight. Like I keep joking that it's a stone's throw, which is funny because it's a rock shop. It's a stone's throw away from the old shop, but literally I could open the front door and probably chunk a rock and likely hit the front door of the new store.
So, I mean, that makes it sound like it was an easy move, but I know it was not.
It was almost harder.
And so we'll get into that, but why did you make this move?
Fate told me to. So whenever we moved to Chattanooga, I've mentioned several times here on the podcast that I'm a bit of a real estate nerd. I'm all like residential and commercial, probably more commercial than residential. It's something that I'm always looking at. I love looking at spaces. I love knowing like the economics of it, of just like what's happening in the economy, like what's the fluctuations like. Learning new areas of town, that sort of thing. So always finger on the pulse. And otherwise, geographer, right? So I have a degree in geography. I see space. I know what areas of town I want to be in. It's how my brain works. So there have always been literally only 2 storefronts in this entire city that I've desired. Only 2. And this was one of them. This was one of them, and it was more or less across the street from our previous store, and it just sort of landed in my lap. If you go back and listen to that first episode, you'll see how the first store opened in very similar conditions, where like I didn't even try, I just showed up. And everything just sort of fell into place, and it was open, and there we were. And how did that even happen? And, lots of manpower. I was there actually doing things. But in terms of like the doors opening and those it just all kind of happened in a way that I just had to show up for. I didn't have to push. It just easily happened. And, if you listen to a lot of like, creative process things, like that's when you've met some sort of flow, that you're there doing what you should be doing, whatever it may be, is when it just becomes easy and like a good kind of easy. And that's kind of what happened with the storefront. So it was probably February. We're recording this in May. I think this goes live in
early June. Yeah.
It goes live in June. So we're recording in May. But in February of this year, I show up to a Being Boss meeting. And one of our team members here was previously my team member at Almanac. And she's like, hey, did you hear about this store? The store that was inhabiting one of those 2 locations in town that I desired. And I was like, no, tell me. And she said that on Instagram, they had just posted that at the end of February, they would be closing. And I said, shut up.
So what was this location? Like, what was the store that was in there before?
It was a jewelry store. It was a little jewelry store that I have shopped at for years. It had been there for about 10 years, I think. So it was there whenever we moved here. And I remember shopping there before we moved here. So whenever I used to drive through here, whenever we lived in the mountains of North Carolina, we would stop in Chattanooga often and do a bit of shopping with a friend. And so I had been in there. I'd bought jewelry there. I loved the store. It had been on my list for a decade. And there's been many times over the past couple of years that I've, been talking to David and just sort of not jokingly said, like, I wonder if we could just go in there and buy the whole store. Like, I wonder if I can like acquire what is currently there. And so that I could have this space. And we never did it because things happen. And I got literally 2 other businesses I'm running. I don't need a third. And so always coveted this space, but never enough to do anything about it. So whenever I hear that this business is closing down, I get David. I think David went over there that day. So he goes to work at the shop across the street. And I tell him, and he goes across the street to the shop and meets the owner. of the store that was closing down and has a conversation with her, and she's just done. She acquired it from the previous owner at the very beginning of the pandemic, not thinking that the pandemic would last 2 years, and it was just burned out. And whenever I met her, I saw it. Like I saw what I experienced in her.
You saw future you.
I saw past me.
Oh,
it was not future. I saw past me. I saw burnout Emily in her eyes. I even said something to her at one point, and just like almost saw her tearing up because like there was, I don't know, a resonance and, you know, this understanding of sort of what she was going through in terms of burnout. And so she was closing the store. And I asked her if she would put us in touch with her landlord, and she did. And we had a conversation with him, you know, a couple days later. And he never even like put a sign in the window. We just signed a lease. So it happened incredibly easily in a way that was really exciting. It was also incredibly terrifying. I've never signed a 5-year lease for anything before. 2 or 3, yes. But 5 was the longest. We also did it. We signed this lease literally the week that Russia invaded Ukraine, which felt,
good timing.
And I don't laugh because that's funny. I laugh because it's either laugh or cry. But it was a sort of terrifying decision to make, to sign a 5-year lease, paying more rent than we've ever paid for my dream space during that week. And so we did it. So the opportunity arose. We snatched it. Even though the world was like, really? We did it. And it felt very serendipitous, as these things tend to keep showing up for me. And we decided we would move the shop into a larger location, and it was very exciting.
So real quick, I did look it up. If you want to learn more about just opening a retail store for the first time, the episode where we actually talked about Almanac opening their first store was episode 264, titled Opening a Retail Store. Very straight to the point title. But anyway, so this is Almanac opening their second store. So tell us a little bit about the space.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's one of the 2 spaces I've ever wanted in the city. It is, the sales floor is literally 3 times plus the size of our previous little store. It also has a full basement. So our stock room, which was literally the size of a matchbox, like I could stand in the middle and almost touch all 4 walls. It was so tiny, is now the size of the sales floor, more or less. And it even has like a little office loft, which is super adorable. And I've been in that store dozens of times and never even realized that that was a loft that I was looking at, which is really sort of mind trippy and exciting.
You were looking at?
I mean, just like a half wall up the thing. It also has like hardcore, like old indie spaces vibe, which like if anyone's been around here for a long time, that's a funny thing. Corey used to work in that office space with me. So it's a historic building on like the main tourist strip in Chattanooga on Fraser Avenue. It backs to the river park, which is on the other side of the river park, is literally the river. There's the main pedestrian walking bridge that goes across the Tennessee River, is like 2 blocks away. So it's like in the most perfect location, and it's cute. It has incredibly high ceilings. We immediately got in there and painted everything, like literally everything. So we painted the walls white. We painted the ceilings black. So it's just like this very clean, beautiful space with big front windows, an old door with a nice little like old door handle, which if you're me, you care about things like that. It's this dreamy, beautiful old space that we painted every surface of and have since filled it with rocks.
Crystals.
We even
you didn't just like dump a bunch of
gravel
in there. Okay.
Yeah, we totally got a dump truck and just like, here, fill it up. No, but beautiful crystals and smell good candles. It does smell weird.
Don't you sell candles? Hold on.
We do. And we keep a lot of them lit so that no one can smell this like old musty smell from the basement. So actually a bit about like getting in there So the first thing we did was paint. And I have mentioned, so actually several steps along this way, I've been recording episodes of the Making a Business podcast that is exclusive to the Being Boss Clubhouse, which is the paid tier of the Being Boss community. So if you are interested in hearing so many pieces of this puzzle, literally as I'm going through it, in that space, you can find the Making a Business podcast where I'm talking about several things. One thing that I do want to talk about here are the painters that we found who were amazing, because these days, hiring contractors, people to work on your house, it's like notoriously awful out there. We found these really amazing painters who just showed up and did their job when they said they were going to. So immediately moving into this space. So we signed the lease. Funny, I think we signed it one of the last days of February. We moved in March 1st. We thought we were going to take a month to get everything zhuzhed up, which previously, we took 9 days to open the store. We thought about taking a month. We ended up extending that to a whole 2 months to open the store because there were some things that we wanted to do in the space. First was painting it. We painted every surface, walls, ceiling. Downstairs, we painted wall, ceiling, and floor because downstairs was a dungeon. Legit. There was one room that we called the murder room because it looked like a murder had happened in there. The bathroom we called the tetanus bathroom because if you used it, you were going to get tetanus. And it was otherwise terrifying in that basement. And so I told David we were going to paint everything. And we did. And it's so much better now. But there's still this like faint, weird basement-y smell that we're working on really getting out.
So there's probably a dead body in there?
No, there was just like the cotton balls left behind.
Okay. So that's not the smell I was picturing, but okay.
No, the murder room had like cotton balls glued to the floor. It was really, really weird. And it was also just like a sign of how
Hold on.
I know.
What could that be used for?
I have no idea. Some sort of murder, I'm sure.
Okay.
Some sort of murder. It was weird. There was no light bulb in this back room. Like you literally could not see. It was terrifying. It was really terrifying. So anyway, we painted every surface and now it looks pretty dreamy, I think. Down there, it still has a sort of faint, weird smell. Is there still
tetanus lingering around or?
No. So the bathroom, we put a new sink in, we cleaned it up, we painted every surface, like literally night and day between what this basement looked like and what it now looks like. It just still kind of smells the same, but we're working on that. So we did a lot of painting and then we also did a couple of build outs. David and I built a platform to go under the window so we could do window displays. I told him as we were planning it out, I was like, I want it to be a small deck. Like I literally want a baby elephant to be able to stand on this tiny deck that we're building. And so we built it very strong, very excited about that. It was really fun to play carpenter. I have some friends who have been calling me Barb the Builder. Because we literally built it. I had planned on hiring a woodworker to come in or a carpenter to come in and build it. And the more I thought about it, I knew exactly what I wanted to build. And it was simple enough that I felt I could build it. And so we did. And so now I'm Barb the Builder, y'all. I can use all kinds of tools now.
Barb.
All kinds.
That's funny.
Right. And then we also built a really nice new crystal shelf across one wall. And this is my favorite story because if you go back to that first episode that we did about opening the first door, I tell the story about the door. Do you remember the door that turned into the table?
Yes.
And sort of quick recap, I had found a door on the side of the road years ago. I told David that it was going to be a table in our retail store when we weren't even a retail store wasn't happening in the near future. We put it in the shed. We got the new space and I was immediately like, okay, time to use that door. And so we turned this old on the side of the road door into the most beautiful table in the retail store. Similar story to that is these live edge cedar planks. So a year ago, we were actually looking at a different space that has not panned out because it literally still is not even done yet. But we go into this dilapidated building, hearing from, the sales guy about the vision for turning this sort of complex, this old boiler plant into a retail destination. We go into this small building that half the ceiling is gone. One of the walls is missing, this really not even still a building. And he's looking up and I'm like, ooh, all the things. And I'm like, but what about this pile of wood that's just in the floor? And he looks at it. He's like, I don't know. Because what no one is noticing is that this is impeccable pile of live edge cedar that has been laying there for God knows how long. And these planks are massive. And by massive, not very wide, but incredibly long. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, can I buy this pile of wood? And he's like, I guess. He was like, how much? And I was like, $1,000. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll take it. Because like, if to him, it was just a pile of wood. To me, holy cow, this was a really great pile of wood. And so we sort of count them, we look at them, and they all look pretty kosher. So we bring in some cash the next day, have a friend with a truck come pick it up, and talked him into letting us keep it in his wood shop until we had a time and place that we could use it. And so we've had this sort of pile of wood in a friend's wood shop hanging out there. And as soon as we signed this lease, I'm like, it's time to get that wood. And David's like, what wood? I'm like, the wood that we've been saving for this moment, this particular moment. So we called up our woodworker friend, had him finish up a couple of pieces. He brought it and dropped it off after the painters were done. And we had this beautiful pile of probably 15 live edge cedar planks that apparently had been sitting in this dilapidated building for probably 50 years. Like they'd been sitting there for decades. And because it's cedar, though, they don't rot. And they had been away from the elements enough, though a couple pieces had to be shaved off. And some of them, you had to just get some moss off of them. But they were beautiful. And once they were like, what's it called when you like make them into planks? Once they were... Plankified?
I don't know.
There's a word for that, and it's not coming to me in this moment. Everyone's probably yelling this at the podcast right now, what this word is. But he like runs it through a planer. Once they got planed, There we go. Some of them could get planked because they were narrow enough. They were incredibly beautiful. Some of them were like 1.5 inches thick, which is wild. And they were just gorgeous. So we brought them in, and David and I had planned out and built a shelf to go along one wall that is sturdy enough, because these cedar planks are so thick, to hold a ton of rocks. Like maybe not literally a ton, but like so many pounds of rocks that regular shelves will not hold, because rocks are incredibly heavy. Mm-hmm. Some of these planks are 16 feet long.
Nice.
They're gorgeous. So we sanded them, we finished them. We planned and built these beautiful shelves. We bought some LED lights from the Amazon, and I learned to solder, which was a whole journey in itself. And we built this really beautiful crystal shelf over the course of a week or two as well. So similar to that door that we like found and waited and finally found its home, we did the same thing with these cedar planks. And now that my shelf is built, I still have a ton of wood that I can use for other projects. And so we have this literally custom built whole wall length of shelving for our crystals that I probably paid in all $600 for, all in, for this one. If I had gotten that custom made by anyone else, I would have paid thousands of dollars. Yeah. And I made it with my own tuned hands.
Tuned hands?
Tuned hands. My own tuned hands.
So not only are you, what was it, Barb the Builder, you're also Mrs. Electric, because didn't you like make your own LED lights?
Yes. So that was a whole, so, you get into these projects, any creative knows, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. And it ends up having 14 more steps than you imagined. Same thing happened with these LED lights. We knew we wanted to light the shelves, right? So, 16 feet long, I'll post an image to the Almanac Instagram around this time. I'll try to remember to. If not, scroll back. I'll put one on there of our crystal wall. You can see this sort of shelving unit that we built. Almanac Supply Co. on the Instas. So we built this very long shelf. We knew we wanted to light it. So I went and I get on Amazon, I bought all the pieces that I need, I say in air quotes, to put together this single LED strip that would light 4 different shelves. 3 or 4 different shelves, and I get it in, and none of the pieces actually go together. Like, this is the most useless pack of LED light stuff ever. And I'm pissed because I did so much research. I had quote unquote figured it out and thought I bought the perfect solution, only to not be able to have any sort of any significant amount of non-light space between the light strips. And I was pissed. I was so mad. that day we were on a Being Boss huddle and I messaged you, Corey, or I was like, Corey, stay after a second. I was like, do you know what to do about these LED lights? And you were like, no. Like, what do I do? So I did what any boss does. I got on YouTube. I got on YouTube and learned that I needed to like solder these pieces together. And I made jewelry back in the day. I used to like do a little bit of silversmithing. So I understood the basics. So I sent David to the hardware store to get a couple of things. And he came back and I spent 2 days soldering a custom series of LED lights that now work perfectly.
Nice.
And so that was fun.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Proud of you.
Thanks.
There might be a fire at some point, but it's fine.
I mean, there's a good bit of electrical tape on there. I'm not going to lie. I feel like we did okay. So we did spend 2 months doing the quote unquote build out of the space. We were able to keep the old store open while we did all of these things. We had the painters in there. We built the shelf. We built this sort of mini elephant deck underneath the window. We started moving things downstairs. So our backstock and our shipping station, because we were able to consolidate all of our shipping from what was the warehouse space and the small shop into one space. And that is the downstairs of the new shop. So we moved all of that stuff. We were able to get a lot of things set up and ready before we closed down the old store to move into the new store. And we took things kind of slowly and tried to do things well and otherwise just like not kill ourselves along the way. And so we spent a month and a half doing a lot of behind the scenes things. In mid-April, we shut down the store, the small store is what we're currently calling it, the small store, to move everything into the the new store. And which literally meant us wheeling box after box after box of rocks from this tiny store across the street. We'd wheel it down the sidewalk, wait for the light to change, wheel over the very bumpy, like little ramp up and down the sidewalks, onto the street, run it across the street and into the door of the new shop and immediately unpack all of the rocks that we just spent all of that time packing as we move from one store to the other. And over the course of 2 weeks, we packed, moved, unpacked, and rearranged to finally get to opening. Boss, I know you're on a mission to guide and influence and build. Having a mission is good for business, but you have to build your business to support your mission too. Whatever your mission is, HubSpot is here to help your business grow better with a CRM platform that grows with you. Its easy-to-use website builder helps you create, manage, and update your business's unique online presence so you can get your mission out to the world quickly and easily. Plus, with seamless plugins that help you track customer activity, you'll know what's clicking and who's not, all from your HubSpot dashboard. Get started and get going for good with HubSpot. Learn how your business can grow better at HubSpot.com.
So you were completely closed for, it sounds like 2 weeks?
Completely closed for 2 weeks.
How has traffic been? How has customer been? Like, was there a fall off after having been closed for 2 weeks, or is like your traffic still good?
Traffic's still good. So it's been an interesting transition. I think if you go back to that episode where we talk about the first time, I talk about how I did not want to be on the main strip, right? Like I didn't want all the foot traffic. I wanted people who were going to like come find us. I mean, but immediately when I saw all those people walking down the street, I was like, well, why aren't I over there? Whose dumb idea was this? It was mine. That I didn't want all this foot traffic. Of course I want the foot traffic. So we're getting all the foot traffic now. Okay. We're definitely getting more people into the store, but fewer of those people are warm leads, right? More of them are cold leads. Whereas before, very few cold leads. Like people were like walking that house
They were
a
seeking
block.
you out.
Yes.
Okay. Or
like fate was drawing them near or whatever it may be, in a way that now just any and everyone who walks by is coming in. So we are getting more people. And it's been an interesting thing to watch. We're getting more people. smaller conversion rates. So as before, almost everyone who came into the shop bought something. Now we're having more people not buying something because more cold leads, more people just wandering in off the street, which is also fine. But we are also like because there's also more cold leads, like some of those are converting in a way that we weren't getting those people before. So we're definitely getting more people in. It's definitely making us more revenue, which I'm very excited about. But there just generally is more traffic, for better or worse.
And one more question before we move on. So you were only in that last space for 9 months. How'd you get out of that lease?
We're not.
Oh. What?
We're not, right? So here's the little sneaky thing. I love that space. Are you kidding me? And I'm not letting it go. At least not in this moment. So no intention of getting out of that lease because it was only a 1-year lease. So we have it until like through the end of June, which, is 2-ish weeks after this goes live, which is only a month and a half. We only have it we were only going to be out of that space for 2 months. So if we do decide that we don't want to keep the space at the end of the lease, we can just let it go. It'll be fine. However, we have plans. One of the things that we keep getting asked about, well, one, we've done workshops in the past, but because pandemic, they've all been virtual. I love the idea of having a space to hold workshops again. So crystals, crystal grids, those sorts of things. It is a small space. They won't be big workshops. We can definitely do workshops. And we're getting tons of people who are requesting tarot readings and the like. So our current plan, and we'll sort of see how this pans out, is to turn it into sort of an auxiliary event space for Almanac. That's a little bit off the beaten path. And otherwise just like a quieter office space for Almanac that is just right across the street so that David in particular can be there working. But if they need support at the store, it's nothing for him to run across the street and help in a way that we can't really do downstairs. But I'm also down to let it go. So all that to say, I'm not letting it go yet. We still have it. And I got plans for it.
And so I have another question before we move on.
Keep going.
So being boss, so when Almanac started, you were just in this little like office space where being boss also had an office, just this like office building. Does Almanac still have that space?
Yes. So I hold 4 commercial leases in this moment. At you. I know. We still have our maker space / warehouse. For Almanac, which is down the hall. It was the first space that we got here in this building that I'm currently in. And we used it to make candles and is still our candle making space. It's also where we're bringing in product to process it. So I did rock shopping this past weekend. We brought it all to this space. It's currently down the hall being processed, weighed and measured and cleaned and like put on our website, etc. So we still have that space. We've had that space for over 3 years now. Love that space. In the same building, I have my office, which is sort of a 2-room situation. I have like my office, and there's like the sort of common area where, I'll do my training out there. I was recently onboarding a new employee and we sat out there and did our training on the TV. There's a couch in here. And before we had the small shop, this is where people were doing their shop by appointments in this space. So it used to be set up with candles and crystals and it was lovely and I loved it. If you want to go to our YouTube and check out some of those old videos, you can see what that space looked like whenever Almanac was in here. But now it's just a general use office for me and the team as needed. So that's space number 2. And then we have the small shop, which currently doesn't have anything. Oh, we're going to do tarot readings and stuff, but really, really, really what we plan on using that space for is our YouTube live streams.
Ooh, okay.
Right? In the past, so since we opened the new shop, the small shop, and this is literally what David and I do all the time. We're like bumbling over which shop we're talking about. We're going to name it something different soon. But in the old shop, we were doing crystal parties before we opened on Fridays and it was very early and like our West Coast people couldn't show up and I had to like get it set up that day, take it down immediately after so we could open the doors. And it was fine, especially for virtual shopping, but not really great for time or like many things. It was very difficult to do. Now we're going to set up the small shop, the old shop, small shop, old shop as a pretty constant YouTube setup. so that we can set up and do more ongoing crystal parties and just like pop up and do stuff as opposed to like, when's the shop going to be open? Who's going to be there? Are we going to be able to get it done in time? Whatever it may be, it can just be our YouTube space. So we're going to keep that space open for our crystal parties on YouTube. You can sign up for those over on the Almanac Supply Co website. They're a ton of fun and I'm excited to do them. And then we have the new large shop, which is Cells 4 and Complete Basement. So we are spread, y'all, for sure. I do think David and I are very conscious that that's maybe too much space, but also it's kind of not. We are going to be in the shop for another, couple of weeks before making a decision either about the small shop, whether it really is right for us to keep it, or maybe my office space, which I also don't think is going to happen, but we are open to adjusting things as needed. But currently we're in 4 spaces.
Well, just like the Jeffersons, you're moving on up.
Oh, that's cute.
All right, let's move on to what did you learn along the way? And I feel like that's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I will say, while you were doing this whole move to this brand new space and getting it all fixed up, you were basically like missing in action on the being boss side of things. Like you were in it. And I was proud of you, but also I missed you. And I feel like there was a lot going on. So tell me about it. What'd you learn?
Ooh, I missed you too. I just the whole being boss thing. I miss being boss for sure. I did unplug, and that's one thing I was so grateful for, that, what we have done at being boss as a team and like with our processes and things, that I was really allowed the ability to just be like, y'all, I'm going to be MIA for a minute. And I was still here for the huddles, but I had really sort of moved really into just the CEO role here, which is funny because for years prior, I was really just in the CEO role at Almanac, right? And then we made this sort of shift and I had to like go very fully into Almanac and was able to really just be in the CEO role here at Being Boss. So, what did I learn though? I'm a risky bitch. At least a little bit. Signing that 5-year lease, especially that week in particular.
So did you timeline wise, did you sign the lease and then the war broke out?
No.
So okay.
Yeah, it broke out earlier in the week and I signed it later in the week. And so I probably had a good 48 hours of going, am I really going to do this? Am I
So the state really of the world changed before you signed a lease. Okay.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Right. And so funny. I got on Twitter and was like, would y'all sign a 5-year lease this week? And 70% said no. But I did it anyway. And no regrets, at least not yet. So it felt like a really risky move. And really, it was probably risk is, I do it. I'm an entrepreneur. It's what I'm here doing. David, on the other hand, is not a risky person, especially when it comes to big things like this. And he did it easily, relatively easily. So I was very his threshold for risk, definitely expanded with this situation. So I felt like we both did a big thing in terms of expanding our capacity for risk. We also had the opportunity, and again, all these things just align for me in the most ridiculous way. We have the opportunity to expand our COVID relief loan with the SBA, which we got just a little piece of one, less than $10,000 whenever they released it, in 2020, 2021 or whatever. But then they expanded availability. And so we maxed it out then and were able to have a bit of funding, which is something that I talk about at length on the Making a Business podcast, which is exclusive in the community, in the Clubhouse. So I do talk about what we did with that, what our plans were for that, why I decided to take out that loan. But we took out a loan, as the world's going to shit as well. And then we also mostly use that loan as just a firm foundation from which to expand our team. So in the past couple of weeks, we've literally doubled our team size at Almanac, which also felt really big and risky. So mostly the thing I learned is that my capacity for doing things is bigger now.
Well, I
than
was
it
going to say,
before.
how's your anxiety after all of that?
Fine.
Huh.
Honestly, like, and that's it. Like, Honestly, and that's it. Like, I recognize all of this as just the moves I need to make next. Like the fraudy feelings around these sure they come. Like, am I being dumb? I ask myself that all the time. It's a good thing to ask yourself occasionally. Develop some self-awareness around your own dumbness. So, I'm still like questioning smartly, I think, myself and making sure I am making the right decisions. But, YOLO, of like, I'm here to do this thing. The opportunities are arising. It feels good. It doesn't feel like I'm being dumb. Though, does it ever really? Sometimes. But my anxiety is fine. Thanks for asking. Another thing that we did this time that I'm really glad we did, and it is not like me normally, is that we did not rush this. I mean, granted, it happened
you literally
quickly.
said you jumped on the opportunity. So
it happened quickly. It fell into place quickly, but I did not push it. I did not rush it.
You made sure you were in a good place to make this decision.
And I was. So, and even if you go back, there are a couple of episodes ago, I talk about rest and I talk about how I spent, especially December and January, just like resting so much. I started to question if I was lazy. Like, I remember asking David one day, I was like, am I lazy? And he's like, why are you asking me that? And I was like, because I feel lazy. Like, I feel like I'm just like sitting around on my ass, not doing anything. And it just sparked a conversation of like, I know I'm resting. And I even tweeted this. There's proof. There's a tweet out there where I talk about how I'm winning no productivity awards over here. This is like in January. Like, I am being lazy AF because I feel like something big is coming. Right? I literally say that just to have something big come. So I was prepared like energetically for this thing to happen, for it to just fall into place and for me to be there to pick it up and carry it, basically. And I didn't rush anything. So, and even, whenever we signed the lease, we were like, okay, we're going to open up I think we were planning on opening it in 3 weeks. And we got about a week into it and we realized, okay, let's push it another 2 weeks. And then we got a week or two more into it. And we're like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and give it a solid 2 months of like, and not showing up and pushing, but really just letting it happen in the time that it needed to happen. And really taking time to build out what we wanted to build out, to stock up on things we needed to restock, to make sure we had a couple of team members in place so that David and I were not opening the store all by our lonesomes, but to really just do everything that needed to be done. So I learned in a way that I had not tested or proved to myself before, how things can happen really, really nicely if you just let them happen in their own time and not rush them. Because I'm a rusher. Like I have ideas and we make it happen immediately. But this was one that we did not do that with, and that was nice. We did gut checks, we ran numbers, we did everything we needed to do and made decisions so that we were afforded even. And that's a funny thing to think about, right? The more time you waste making a decision, the more time you're screwing yourself out of in terms of execution.
And also just the longer you take to make a decision, the easier it is, or the more time you give yourself to talk yourself out of it.
Amen. Oh, that was really a thing, especially as the world's going to shit. Whether you're working on your own or with a team, FreshBooks has you covered as the easy-to-use accounting software designed specifically with small business owners like you in mind. It's filled with features like time tracking, expenses, invoicing, and projects that are perfect for both entrepreneurs and growing teams. You can collaborate with employees, clients, and contractors, share files and messages with everyone involved, and sit back and just watch how quickly things happen when everything is in one place. Try FreshBooks free for 30 days, no credit card required. Go to freshbooks.com/beingboss to get started today. Another thing that I did learn though, like all of that, yes, I am built for this. Like, because I do feel pretty good in this moment. And like you guys know, burnout's a thing. My finger's always on the pulse of like, am I okay? And there's been a couple of times along the way that I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pushing myself too far. But like overall, okay. Like, no, overall, I am okay. I will say that with a little bit more confidence.
I feel like in this instance, it's not so much your mental capacity that was being pushed. It was your physical capacity.
Oh, for sure. Y'all, I carried rocks for days and like I built shit and carried lumber and like, oh, for sure. My body has been doing things the past couple of months that like my body does not do. And I sit at I'm a computer boss, you know, but I have not been at the computer. When there's something else I talk about in making a business, I, go to a massage therapist and she's always like, oh, you need to get off the computer because like all of my computer muscles are jacked up or whatever. And then as we were moving, I went to her and she was like, oh my God, what have you been doing? And I was like, I got off my computer. And like that has the rest of my body in knots. So anyway, I definitely have just, I'm not Superman. Right. I feel like entrepreneurs often think like, endless amounts of energy and all these things. Like I'm not. And I've definitely like reached the end of my capacity, I think more or less. And I still have a bit to go, but like I'm on my last threads. And having that self-awareness, I think is always invaluable. I will also say one of the things that this isn't what I've learned, but this is something that has been punctuated is that your values in business are the most important thing that you can define for yourself. Period. As we have moved and like Almanac has changed so much in the past 2.5 months. So much. I mean, like our revenue stream, like our team size, how we're picking products, like everything, most things in this business have changed. If I didn't have my values clearly defined, I'd be a hot mess of not being able to make decisions right now. Mm-hmm. Right? But because our values have been in place, it's been incredibly easy along the way for David and I to sit down and be like, okay, based on what's important to us in this company, based on our values, our business values, here are the obvious answers to all of these questions and decisions. And we've been able to use that to make fast decisions so that we do have plenty of time to execute and implement. And whether that's hiring or training or choosing products or so many things, being very centered in our values has us able to move very quickly and feel incredibly good about what we've done thus far.
And you learned how to woodwork.
Dude, I'm a carpenter now. Didn't you know? I've added a whole, like literally tools in my tool belt. I actually almost bought myself a tool belt. Legit, because we were doing so much woodworking. I was like, I just need to be able to access my hammer faster. So yeah, I learned how to build things, and I've built some things before. But
did you hurt yourself?
No, I did not.
Look at you go.
Because I use safety goggles and things. I literally use tools I've never used before. We bought like a different kind of saw. Oh my God, I found the joy of a jigsaw. So much fun. I built sandwich boards for outside the store. I did some really, really fun stuff with wood. I felt like a maker again. And I was telling a friend about, all the things that I was making. And she was like, what I love most about the store is you made it.
Yeah.
Like you legit, like if people come in, we actually had someone come in the other day. I was in the back room and one of the girls that works for us was in the front and someone walked in. They were ogling over this like wall length crystal shelf that we have. And they're like, oh my God, where'd you get this? And she was like, the owners made it. And I was like,
Aww.
Fuck yeah, I did. Hear me yelling from the back, except I didn't. But yeah, I learned how to be a carpenter, basically. I was literally calculating angles and stuff like that, which was a ton of fun to use my hands to very practically build something. And then I also literally learned how to solder electronics.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I did it. I did it. I've done like some weird things. I don't mind taking things apart and learning how to put them together or whatever it may be. And it was really fun to sort of gain or like adjust a skill I previously had. So I literally learned some practical like skills. I mean, if you can say soldering LEDs once or building 2 or 3 things is like, but I dabbled, right? I feel like I could move forth and do some things. David and I are literally planning on rebuilding our back porch ourselves this fall, since doing what we did in the shop and feeling so confident and good about it. Who needs to hire
pace
someone?
yourself.
No, I think it's going to be easy, says me. We can do an episode on my back porch later if we need to. Emily's maker fails.
Now I can build a house.
Dude, I think I would totally think about building a shed or maybe a small cabin. That's very, very ambitious, but let me get that back porch under my belt and we can talk about it.
I mean, there's like building codes you have to follow when building that kind
screw
of
those.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
So coming out of this, it sounds like you're actually feeling pretty good about where Almanac is and this whole move. Am I correct about that? Do you feel good? How are you feeling?
I feel maybe the most boss I've ever felt. I think I can like wholeheartedly, that feels really good to say that. I think I might cry.
Hold on, wait, let me rephrase. What's making you feel most boss?
Me! Me and everything we did. For sure. I mean, I feel like Almanac is 4.5 years old, I guess. Not even 4.5. And I feel like we have been trying to build this business for 4.5 years, right? We started it, I hit burnout and just like kept it afloat. Then pandemic hit. Same, except pandemic was not bad for Almanac. Almanac grew over those 2 years. To like open the small store and immediately feel like we were too squinched, right? Like it wasn't quite it. To now be in one of the 2 places I've ever wanted in the city. So like, I feel like this is what we've been growing for this entire time. It doesn't mean that I'm done. Like there's still things that I want to do. I need to go back into, doing some online stuff, and there's some bridging between online and offline that I have some really great ideas for. And I really can't wait to sort of bring the business together. But in terms of growing it, in terms of pushing it to its next thing, at least at the moment we did it. Like in a way that didn't really feel it with the last store, but really feel it with this one. Like I don't feel the need to like take another big step at Almanac for the foreseeable future, unless fate has some other plan for us. But like I feel like we did it. This was the goal, and so it feels really good to be there. So we opened the store on May 1st, which is just over 2 weeks ago, as of recording this. The first weekend, I had to leave town. I had a family emergency and I had to leave. And so our first weekend, I wasn't even there to run it, and I didn't need to be, which was, so like imagine everyone opening a store and within 5 days of opening it, you don't need to be there. I was in that, like, it was not lost on me how effing boss that was to be able to deal with a family emergency, no questions asked, and know that my business that I have been like, that just took the biggest leap of its life was totally fine and in good hands because we had done some things along the way. We did a hiring fair, which is like a whole other conversation that I do talk about in Making a Business as well. If that's something you want to know more about, that episode is in the clubhouse as well. But we had team members in place so that I could leave its first full weekend. I didn't even have to be there. Its second weekend, which is this past weekend, I had a buying trip that I had to go buy rocks. The store has been open for 2 weeks and I haven't had to work it.
So is David still there? Like, is he still doing things? Like,
David's still there.
What's his day-to-day?
He's working it. He's working at the store and dealing with a lot of stock stuff because we're working out some systems for onboarding a new stock person, and we've been training. I have worked at the store a couple of times. Well, I will say I haven't had to work at it yet. I have worked to train.
Yeah.
A couple of times. But in terms of being in the store by myself because no one else is there, hasn't had to happen. And it has been open 2 full weekends and I haven't been here for either of them. So it has been really amazing to know that, like, even though I went whole hog into Almanac face first, I was very easily able to just immediately pull back out and have the business run, which has been really amazing. Long term, no. For family emergency, yeah, I was able to do it. And we have a path map forward for doing some more training, doing a bit more hiring, and otherwise having everything in place so that I can make that transition back into that CEO role, which brings me more into being boss, which I have been able to do over the past really week or so. I feel myself like being here a little bit more, but it has been incredibly boss to know that I did this big thing and immediately have the support that I need because I put in place the support that I need for me to take care of the things that I need to take care of. And
for all our audience out there, stay tuned for the third part of this series coming out next year where Almanac moves again.
We open our 18th location, right? All the way across the globe. Who knows? I would tell you, I hope not. I really do hope not. I mean, we're in this space for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? 5-year lease. Except for in the event of a government occupation, which
is that in the lease?
It literally was. I've never
terrifying.
in my life. It was the longest lease I have ever signed. And especially during that week, reading in a lease about some government occupation, I was like, oh my God. So I negotiated that if that happens, I just get out of the lease.
Yeah.
Like I'm not
That's
dealing
fair.
with none of that, y'all. None of that. We are not turning our candle making spot into an ammunition production and then dealing with that. Absolutely not. So anyway, all jokes aside, I'm glad we did it. And I hope that this is just what Almanac looks like for a minute. Again, we're going to be hiring a couple more people. So pleased with what is currently happening with the Almanac team. I've voiced at Being Boss in the Huddle a couple of times that my goal for Almanac is that I can create the kind of team that we have at Being Boss when we're like, everyone works so well together. Everyone knows what they're doing. We have the processes in place so that it's really easy for everyone to do their job. And it just like, it feels like we're doing something and we're doing it easily and collaborating together. I've loved having this so much at Being Boss for so long. And I've really struggled with really building that at Almanac. But I feel like with this last bit of hiring that I did, and just what we're currently doing at the store, it feels like my intentions are manifesting in terms of building the team at Almanac as well. And that's something that we'll continue doing. So overall, I'm feeling amazing. Really amazing. And I hope that I don't have to come do one of these episodes again in the near future. Though that space that we were looking at where I found that pile of wood. Oh God. If it finishes, and it's not going to finish even in the next year, I don't think. But I could imagine maybe if they it was supposed to have opened last spring and it still kind of looks the same as it did last spring. They just took the trees down, which makes me angry all in itself. But if it does happen, I'd give it a timeline of 12 to 18 months. I could see that being a second location. But otherwise, there's nowhere else I want to go. I did the thing, and I'm really excited to work on optimizing this to be the best that it can be, which is my priority before expanding in any way.
You did it.
Did it. I'm so excited. You're going to have to come rock shopping. Everyone should come rock shopping. Everyone, plan yourself a little trip somewhere. If you need to come straight to Chattanooga, I love that for you. If you want to stop in on your way to somewhere else, love that for you. Come by Almanac. North Shore area is adorable. You're going to have to go get yourself some ice cream at Clumpy's down the block. Go walk across the walking bridge. The Bluffview Art District is one of my favorites. And stop in Almanac and buy yourself a crystal or two. You too, Corey. Let me get you a rock. That's what you're going to get for your birthday, a rock.
Okay. Still want my name tag.
Oh, well, you'll get that too. Get a rock in your name tag. I love that for you.
Oh my God. Can the name tag be a rock with my name etched in it?
Oh my God. Do I now have to learn how to etch? Maybe so. Maybe so. All right, boss, because you're here, I know you want to be a better creative business owner, which means I've got something for you. Each week, the team at Being Boss is scouring the news, the best entrepreneurial publications, and updates and releases of the apps and tools that run our businesses, and is curating it all into a weekly email that delivers the must-know tips and tactics in the realms of mindset, money, and productivity. This email is called Brewed. We brew it up for you each week to give you the insight you need to make decisions and move forward in your creative business. Check it out now and sign up for yourself at beingboss.club/brewed. That's beingboss.club/BREWED. Now, until next time, do the work, be boss.
Yeah.